We are back from our executive session consulting with our town attorney, and I would like at this time to recommend the board makes a motion.
I move to authorize a resolution of the pending litigation matter of Deborah Bragg Adams et al. Versus Nation Star Mortgage LLC et al. Superior Court, Waldo County, docket number RE-2019-04, on substantially the same terms as contained in the proposed settlement agreement, and to authorize the town attorney to take such further action as necessary and appropriate related to the same.
So moved?
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And jumping back into our regularly scheduled program, you are now tuned into the Lincolnville Selectmen's meeting. It is July 22nd. Kern, would you please read the quote?
I'd be glad to. It's a sure sign of summer if the chair gets up when you do. Walter Winchell.
Cute. Thank you very much. At this point, I would like to open the podium for any non-agenda items. Seeing nobody rushing up to the podium, let's move along to the administrator's report.
Woohoo. I'm lost. I guess beyond the agenda, I don't have a whole lot to report. Roadside mowing, besides roadside mowing, is completed. We should be undertaking the mowing at the fire station in relatively short order. That we're required to do by our environmental permits when we constructed the station. Outside of that, we're also gearing up to do a couple of culvert replacements on Youngtown Road before that gets paved, and I guess that's it.
If something else comes up, just jump on in.
So on the field where the fire department is,
Yes.
I noticed that the Snowmobile Club has not removed their trail markers this year as of yet, and they're quite sizable compared to years gone by, and I was just wondering,
Are they staying or?
are they staying, or they're pretty good size and they're good but
I'll get in contact with somebody and ask
okay,
them
all right, just a question.
because Melissa's going to remind me tomorrow.
Any other questions for the town administrator? Okay, let's move along to upcoming meetings and announcements.
All meetings are here at the town office unless announced otherwise. Lakes and Ponds Committee meets Tuesday, July 23rd, 7 p.m. Midcoast Solid Waste Corporation Board of Directors meets Wednesday, July 24th, 7 p.m. at the Camden Town Office. Conservation Commission is meeting Thursday, July 25th, 4 p.m. Planning Board meets Wednesday, July 31st, 7 p.m. Conservation Commission meets again on Monday, August 12th, 4 p.m. and the Board of Selectmen meets next on Monday, August 12th at 6 p.m.
Fantastic.
David,
Whoops, and
Yep.
it goes solid waste on the papers you just gave out to me, says it meets at 6:30.
no.
So I think they changed it on us. I don't know which one's right.
Midcoast Solid Waste meets at 6:30 Wednesday evening.
Perfect. Are there any upcoming community events anyone cares to share? Seeing nothing, let's move along to the meeting minutes from July 8th.
I move that the board approve the July 8th, 2019 meeting minutes as presented.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And we now have the opportunity to have a conversation regarding our Independence Day celebration that we had and future planning, and we have Mr. Heald here to chat with us about that.
Good evening. Donnie Heald, 926 Beach Road. Thank you for having me. I just wanted to have a follow-up with the board about what we did, how things went, what the board's opinion of what they saw, anyone that was able to attend and enjoy the evening's event. Just wanted to work with the board going forward, as we'd like to continue and begin making plans, as we already have started making plans towards next year, at a limited level and would like to continue on with said activity. I'd like to work with the select board on an ongoing basis, month to month, and kind of talk about progress and what we have planned on a year-to-year basis, and discuss where we had strengths, where we had weaknesses, and where we need to make improvements. I did see that we need additional portable toilets at the beach for the amount of people that are coming. I really don't know how many people we had. We had a lot of people came. The buses worked well for the evening, and we had a very good arrangement with that. What we had a problem with the traffic flow was the cars that parked up 173. It was quite narrow and created a bottleneck, which was a slowing factor for the buses. It didn't prevent them from moving, but it's certainly a pinch point. We certainly don't want to mingle walking traffic and moving vehicles where you barely have room for a large bus to move. It's not certainly a safe thing to do. So going forward, I think that's something we need to address. There'll probably need to be signage for no parking up those street sides all the way up through to Sleepy Hollow, so we can keep that open. There was certainly plenty of parking still available here at the school that wasn't utilized. Western Auto had 30 cars. It could have taken another 200. And we had a very good arrangement with parking attendants, kind of Union Fair style, behind Western Auto, and that worked well. We had 3 men out back helping direct parking, but again, it just wasn't highly utilized. So there's room for expansion. I think we can handle a lot more people, and we'll certainly make that part of our planning going forward into next year, that we will advertise the shuttle service very heavily. Everything as far as the events at the beach that night, everything played out as we pretty much intended it to, and going forward, we're basically just putting volunteers in place to be able to help with different activities. It was you end up being chief cook and model washer and a lot of stuff. We had to set up a cover for the band and then had to tear it down, and then you have to pick up the fire afterwards and all that. So there's a lot of cleanup afterwards, but we'll have more help next year going forward, and have a better sense on where we are numbers of people wise. So that's what I have to offer you tonight. But I just wanted the board to know that as the official sponsor or host, I wanted to work with this board directly going forward on coming planning and find out what the town would like to see happen with this event, and where we can make it more successful and more user friendly for the public. Because I certainly want to continue, and there seems to be great interest in carrying it forward. So I'd like to continue to work towards that end. So if you guys going forward, I'm certainly not looking for anything from you tonight at all. I just wanted to set the table that going forward, I am planning towards next year, and in an effort to keep things as streamlined and simple as possible, I'd rather work directly with the select board on my as the promoter. And doing that, I think that we can address any issues that we need to going forward, and have everything well in hand by the time we reach countdown to next July.
First thing, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I was
Nothing
honored
but
to do it.
praise, Donnie. Nothing but praise, and
Thank you.
a lot of people know now that you've got absolutely no problem blowing things up. You did a good job.
Thank you.
But I think you're on the right track. Myself, I think this is a worthwhile event for the town, and I think you're going about it the right way. I would put a lot of stock in guidance from your local fire chief and local law enforcement. I know we've gotten a little bit of feedback from both of them, but it isn't anything that you haven't already touched on.
Okay.
So again, thank you very much. It was impressive. We can always improve, and I, for one, and I would never speak for the board here, but we're going to help you.
It's wonderful. I look forward to doing it again, and like I said, we liked it how it played out. I don't know that we're going to do a bonfire again, just for the host of different reasons that you can come up with not to do one. But But that being said, I think that as a evening event for the town, I think there's some scalability there, and I think there's quite a bit of latitude for different things to go on. So we want to kind of do a little bit of brainstorming at the same time and see maybe some other groups would like to glom on and maybe do some other things earlier in the evening at the beach in the lead up to what we're doing, and see how we can maybe dovetail some of that, make it a, just the same way Camden does its little park row by the library, and they have things going on. We can do kind of the same thing maybe with part of what's going on at the ferry. There's some things that we can discuss, but I'd like to lay the groundwork right now that would like to kind of take things in that direction and see how we can grow this into something that's really exciting for everybody and safe and repeatable. That's the key thing. We got to be able to keep doing it every year. I want to keep doing it every year, and we have very lucky that we have a lot of businesses that wanted to donate money to do it, and I think that's the key. If you have the funding and the help to do it, we can do something nice for everybody every year, and we deserve it. We deserve a day we can hang out and have some fun, at least for a couple hours anyway.
Because it's no work for you at all.
I'm going to be working either way, so it's all good. I really wanted to just enjoy doing something special for the town. I was a pyro for 20 years, and the company went away. Didn't really figure I'd ever really do much with it anymore. I'm still licensed, and I wanted to take advantage of that and do something special for our town that maybe other towns won't be able to do.
Yeah.
I want to make Lincolnville the premier 4th of July fireworks on the whole coast of Maine.
Thank you so much for
Thank you for
getting
your time.
Yeah.
well, and thank you for getting the conversation going now. And I'm sure you'll stay in touch with the town administrator, and we'll get.
I will.
looped
I'd
in
like
as
to
you
think.
need to.
I think that probably every 2 months, probably we should have a face-to-face and see where we are going forward, because I have some meetings in August with different groups that wanted to start planning now, and I wanted to come back and just touch on some things, because like I said, first and foremost, public facilities. That's kind of the big, you got to be able to go to the bathroom when you're in these, you got 1,000+ people there. You want to make sure it's easy for everybody to have access to facilities, so we're going to make sure that that's upgraded for next year.
And how's you indicated that you were pursuing a 501c3
That's something I'm going
designation.
forward with an accountant to do, because it's just a filing process.
Yep.
Because of all the receipts I have from this year,
Yep.
I need to take that. It goes 990, then 501c3, I believe, is how that runs. It's a
Yep.
2-step process.
Yep.
And I don't know how long it takes for them to say yes to that. It takes whatever it takes, but we're gonna make sure that like I said, we want it to live as its own entity, and just for the purposes of that. That way, we're not we don't want a huge tax liability.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason. We just want to be able to do it and have it be its own day, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Excellent.
Any other questions for Mr. Heald? Nope. Thank you very much
Well,
for the
thank
update.
you for your time.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
You as
Appreciate
well.
Thank you.
And moving along, we have a couple representatives from the Veterans Memorial Park here to give us an update, ask us a couple questions, potentially.
Nobody's running out. Either or both. They're intertwined. Maybe I'll start. Just
Sure.
Last fall, was it last fall? You and I, Jay Foster and I got together with Gary Neville, representing the boat club, to discuss the potential for a sidewalk from where the walkway leads off at Norton Pond, roughly parallel Route 52 to in front of the library to where the crosswalk goes across to the boat club now, and had a tentative plan, would you say? He's kind of nodding, so I guess that's okay. And not the boat club, Veterans Park folks were here in the spring to give you an update, said they had a few things left to go. The boat club obviously would like us to move faster rather than slower on the sidewalk, but I don't really want to put a sidewalk in and then traverse it with excavators or other equipment, because sidewalks aren't really made to support that load unless you're going to design them that way. And that's kind of where we stand today. We do have a couple more wrinkles beyond the park. We have the Voluntary Response Action Program, which is the DEP program that we applied for when we acquired the property, and we have that on both what used to be the Millington property, where the park is now, and the Dina Hughley property, where the library is now. That puts relatively easily attainable restrictions on that in terms of digging, because both sites had monies expended on them for cleanup with petroleum contamination or issues, and they don't want us to disturb that. So basically it's a notification process to the DEP, to Nick Hopkins there, who then reviews it and says you're all set. Has in the past said you're all set. If you happen to uncover anything while you're doing, call the 800 number. We'll send a response team down, tell you what you can and can't do. But we did, in order to maintain those assurances that they're not coming back, we do have to go through the notification process. The other potential parties involved would be the library, because they leased a portion of that land from us, or may have, or the Maine Department of Transportation, because of the right-of-way for the road. Right-of-way for the road's a little nebulous, I should say.
You mean distance back from?
Yeah, well, they typically, for roadways, they control more than just the surface of the road. There's a certain width or distance each side of the road for drainage or for parking or whatever purposes. We just want to make sure that we cross the T's and dot the I's, and we don't give anybody any surprises that then they want to come down and dig it up or tell us we did something wrong.
Right.
So, a number of questions leap to my mind. First, we haven't officially taken, the town have not officially taken possession of the Veterans Memorial Park for care and maintenance, correct?
Well, semi. I mean, we, the town, own the site.
Right,
the committee hasn't officially said that they're done doing what they're doing and it's all yours to be to run with. Let's put it that way. There's Jay. Finally got him up there.
Jay
Excellent
Parsons,
segue.
the Veterans Honor Roll Park. I thought this conversation was with Gary, but Gary's not here.
He should
so
be
I'll
coming.
just fill in for Gary.
He said he was coming.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, as far as the Veterans Honor Roll Park is concerned, we pretty much consider the park being done, except for the last issue that we were going to deal with was some grading of the Norton's Pond side to level it up a little bit. And then that was going to be seeded, and then we were going to put the park in the possession of the town, and you have the line item in the budget to maintain it going forward. And so we've done everything that we were told to do concerning construction and for the park. So we're about ready to turn it over. But the question that's come up, and Gary Noble was the one that brought it up, was the area from the actual front of the park itself to the roadway in terms of sidewalks.
Right.
That's Gary's issue. I think I've stood here before you and said in the past that the committee had made a decision not to make a decision about the sidewalk. We thought the sidewalk was a town issue, and we didn't want to develop a sidewalk and have our sidewalk different from the library sidewalk, which is going to be different from the Breezebury Park sidewalk, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Gary's issue where the boat club is, it's a safety issue. So the area that we're talking about, and we went out and delineated, was the area that crosses the road at the crosswalk that's been created to the library, and then down to Breezebury, which includes the Honor Roll Park. So what Gary's concern is kind of short term. He has an immediate concern about the safety of the children that are crossing the crosswalk and going down in front of the library and the Honor Roll Park, crossing the road and going down to Breezebury. So I thought that's what we were going to be discussing tonight. As far as the park is concerned, the sidewalk issue really doesn't come into play with his short-term plan for a safe sidewalk between the boat club and Breezemere. Because what's going to be done to the park in terms of leveling it wouldn't be a permanent issue. I mean, the leveling would be permanent, the sidewalk would not be.
Sure, yeah.
So I think what Gary is coming hopefully to ask of you is that there's some short-term plan be put in place to create some sort of a sidewalk between the boat club and Breezemere that would,
Speak.
I can now
Yeah.
shut up.
Gary, can we invite you to the podium? We're in the middle of a conversation regarding side.
We are.
Run a tight ship, Gary.
I didn't fill it in for you, so that's okay.
Well, you guys are the committee though, right?
What? What good?
Veterans Committee, yeah.
You, go right ahead.
Okay. Evening. My name is Gary Neville. I was on the Veterans Memorial Committee and then also part of the Lincolnville Boat Club. So, as part of the memorial design, a sidewalk was talked about, and as a representative from the sailing club, we were a proponent of having a sidewalk that would go from the crosswalk that's in front of the library down to the Norton's Pond Road. Some of that is, well, most of it's to get the children off the road, and then some of it is, what we tried to do is wet sail less boats because of some issues with using moorings, and we bought hand carts. So we load the boats on the hand carts and we carry them down and launch them every day. So having those hand carts in the road isn't a good thing, I don't think. And the way that part of the property is, there's a wooden barrier that's on the lawn. I don't know if you've seen that low. So it forces, then there's a gully next to the road. So what we were hoping for was that a 6-foot wide sidewalk could go from the crosswalk down to the Norton's Pond Road.
Okay.
And we met last fall informally and laid out a path that seemed to be workable with everyone. Dave was there, Jay was there, I was there. I think there was 1 or 2 other committee members from the,
Cindy Dunham was there.
yeah. So,
Would that abut the road?
no, I think there'd be a grass barrier,
Okay,
maybe 4 feet, 3-4 feet.
okay, so it would be fairly close to the library as you come by it, right?
Yeah, it would have to be because of
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
but I think it was actually a little bit further than 4 feet away from the road. We were talking some sort of
Okay.
grass esplanade or whatever you want to call it. So there would be at least a visual barrier but if you look at the library now, the library actually in their site plan put I don't know what they call it, a path in front of the library headed towards the park.
Yeah.
And when I looked, there wasn't any width distinguished, but we did talk about wide enough because we measured your cart when we were there,
Yes.
right? And we said you gotta go
5.5 feet wide.
right. You gotta go a little wider
Cart
than the
is-
cart to make it work.
Yeah.
The other one of the other issues is certainly not insurmountable. Will be the surface, because we'll want ultimately to have a hard surface so that it is accessible to all users.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you get that out on the table.
Well, so just for clarity's sake, what we're talking about is, because obviously there's no money in the budget to install a proper sidewalk, and there's any number of steps that need to be considered before we could put a permanent route of passage for any users within the right of way along 52, correct? So,
Well, along what you were just explaining with the Department of Transportation and all that.
Well, we need to make sure we notify whoever
So, but am
Get
I
the necessary
am I
approval.
correct in hearing that what is being requested right now is a temporary posting of route with what? Posts hammered in and string, or what? I'm not
Well,
sure what you've
at-
discussed with
at-
David
At
previously.
one point, the discussion was, there's a paving budget that, for roads and for hand-placed pavement, and this would be hand-placed pavement.
But those funds are all spoken for,
Okay.
and those are decided. So, if what you're talking about is something for next season, then we would need to factor that in.
Sure, because as far as the boat club's timeline, we waited for the memorial to get designed, and we were hoping that the sidewalk would be something they wanted, which I think it is what the group wants, is a sidewalk.
Yep.
So that's been like a 3-year process.
Yeah.
So 2 years ago, we had 129 students, day students, plus the nighttime, which really doesn't matter. Last year, 2 years ago, we had 125 students. Last year, 129 students. This year, probably about the same. So and that's in an 8-week period. So there's a lot of, I think, need
Sure.
to do something.
Sure.
So,
But so it makes sense that if what the ask is not for something exceptionally temporary and visual, but what the ask is for is to create a off-road navigable way for pedestrians or otherly abled people that isn't in the road.
yeah.
We're gonna have to have a bigger conversation about that potential cost.
I think I could get
You know,
all the subgrade done.
all of those little pieces.
Yeah.
Not to mention permissions from the DOT, because we don't actually
Yeah.
own it. So
Yeah.
hang on, Jay.
We may.
But
So I just wanna be really clear on what you're asking for, just because this.
a paved sidewalk.
Okay. Easy enough. Great. Perfect.
Very clear.
Perfect. That's
And last fall, we were hopeful it was gonna happen this summer, because by the time the paving's done, the season's over for the
Yep.
boat club. So then, if it gets kicked down the road again, then we're gonna miss next season,
Yep.
so.
Yeah. So really what it is it's a conversation that needs to be put into play, say going into the fall, so that we can determine what the town's interest or ability to do that would be, so that then we can roll this into budget conversations.
Yeah, and if the selectmen said that the concept was good and all the i's were dotted, t's were crossed, I think I could get the subgrade done.
Okay.
If someone said they wanted 6 inches of gravel, and I think it should be wider than the sidewalk so that edges don't heave, but I could get that all done.
Yep.
So then it'd just be a matter of paving
Yep.
in the town budget.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of that, I mean, there's like so many filters between us and the DOT, like the DOT will determine a lot of that.
Yeah, although most of it may be out of the right of way of the road, because it is kind of nondescript, but
Okay.
certainly where we tie into where the crosswalk is will be.
I think it's, well, I looked into that a while ago. They only own to the back of the ditch. They pretend that they own more, but they don't. So after that, in the back of the ditch is the back of the ditch, wherever it happens to be.
Okay.
But
Okay.
certainly it should be checked.
Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. Any other questions for Gary while he's up there? Okay, Jay.
It just strikes me that there's a couple of things going on here.
Right.
Gary's point, I think, is to the immediate subject, which is the safety issue of the boat club to Breezemere. Is there a reason why it has to be paved?
If we're putting
And I
in,
say that as opposed to a delineated, safe walkway between the boat club and the Breezemere?
well, if we're going to, if we, the town, is going to install a sidewalk, there are all kinds of accessibility qualities that have to come into play with it, which,
Unless, what if it was a delineated safe pathway as opposed to a paved sidewalk? Not to play with semantics here, but
well, so here's the thing of it, is that I don't know that we need to workshop it right here and right now. The question is like, we want to have a sidewalk from this point to this point. So I think that if the board, through either consensus or if you want a motion, David, we can make a motion to continue to expand upon this conversation and the details therein with the town administrator. I don't necessarily, like, I don't think it makes sense for us to peel the whole onion apart on the sidewalk conversation right here and right now.
that's the second thing that I was talking about. Where the first issue is a safety issue, raised merit to the second issue is the sidewalks. In the town of Lincolnville, if the discussion is about to start on sidewalks as far as an infrastructure issue, I don't think we have to build sidewalks, but I think we should start talking about a standard. So if sidewalks are going to be discussed and sidewalks are going to move forward in the town of Lincolnville, the standard needs to be created of what those sidewalks are going to be. If you're going to pave this section of a sidewalk from the Boat Club region, what are you going to do with all the other sidewalks that may come up in further discussion?
Sure,
If the
fair
town
enough.
has a standard for it, that doesn't cost anything to create a standard.
Yeah.
Then anybody that has a discussion about sidewalks is going to build to that standard.
Yep, which is a larger conversation. I mean, is what was proposed to us is that we were gonna get an update on the Veterans Park, and then there was some sort of sidewalk discussion that was going to be had. So, I mean, am I missing something else that isn't readily apparent?
Well, we got a lot of different issues all mixed into one here.
Right.
The first thing I'd back up is you go back to safety.
Right.
If there's something unsafe, who's ever doing an unsafe activity probably needs to stop. Find an alternative method immediately.
Right.
Because no matter what we do, we're not going to have a sidewalk there tomorrow.
Right, the town cannot, right now, we, sitting here, can't do this and suddenly make a situation of a private group, their activities on the DOT's right of way or property that the town may have. So if what I'm hearing is, and if the board has an interest in putting this on a future agenda to have a conversation regarding safe sidewalks.
Let's do this. Is there something there right now physically that inhibits the boat club from walking where we would put a sidewalk if they need to? There is.
That wood fence.
Okay. So
I'm having trouble.
they've
No,
built a
Sorry, hey, Rosie,
I,
hang on one second. Does anyone else have any more questions for Jay? Okay, Jay, you can get out of the hot seat.
As far as the park is concerned, we're out of the equation right now.
Great.
We finished.
And you have plans.
What we want to do in front of the park is up to the DOT
Okay.
and you.
And so just to wrap up that tiny little piece of the conversation, what's the deadline for completion of the grading on the property? Okay, great. Mr. Gary, step on up.
All right. As far as that grading is concerned, that can be reached from the pond road, dropped in, leveled off by rakes. We're this close. I mean, like this. I don't know what's going to happen. We've had nothing but rain. That's why we were going to reloam the whole thing. I've talked to Jay. We've got the the bush, the lilacs in there. It looks great. The park is 99 and 9/10 finished right now.
so, if you were gonna reloam the whole place, wouldn't it be advantageous
To do it now, before the sidewalks went in, if there was such a thing.
before the sidewalk went in?
Yes. Yeah, you would. You really wouldn't want to drive over that hot top, even with plywood, with machinery.
Okay.
But I don't see us doing it. I don't see us doing the whole thing anymore. It looks great, unless this board feels that the whole thing should be reloaned. Let us know. We'll do it. But it really, every comment I get is that it looks absolutely wonderful. We just got one little low spot on the pond side that we just like to level it out a little bit right there. Can be reached with an excavator, just by, or can be shoveled in.
So anything to do with the sidewalk is not going to interfere with you doing?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
now, to answer your question, you don't get the fence. It is not a fence, it's a barrier. What it is fir poles
Laying on the ground.
laid on the ground,
Okay. Yeah. All right.
all right?
Yeah.
And they're so that people won't park on the lawn in front of the library. We don't have them. There's never really been a thing or a stake driven in the ground, or the town has never really determined. The town owns both pieces. So there's not. But if you go down there, there's kind of a determining thing. Is the ash tree, is kind of, the library takes care of that.
I see.
The park is, the veterans have taken care of everything from the ash tree towards the pond. The library has taken care of everything from there on. I don't know why that got determined, but just the way it is. There's no set rule or determining stake in the ground or anything.
So the logs kind of just put there, and they're probably in the right of way of the DOT.
I'm not sure. I
Yeah.
couldn't answer that.
If we knew where the back of the ditch was, so to speak. Okay. That's a conversation with the library.
That's correct.
Thank you.
You done?
So it seems like we need to have a bigger conversation about sidewalks in general.
So how about I make this proposal or thought? How about between now and your next meeting, the sidewalk location be staked out so that you can all see and we can invite the other parties to attend, and then we can have the meeting start right there at 6 o'clock because it's still daylight out, and have a little group workshop right there.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Perfect.
Does that
Yeah.
work?
I'm leaving for Portugal next week.
Any
Rough.
chance you could put that on?
Rosie.
No?
You coming back?
So, in the meantime, I heard from the boat club that there was an obstruction. And so there is they feel that there is an immediate, something should be done immediately. And so, is there a possibility that the select board could address that immediate thing? Because there's plenty of room on the grass if the boat club attendees, or what do you want to call them, Gary? I don't know, the
Counselors.
kids, the students. There's plenty of room still for them to walk down the grass, but they've got these obstructions in the way in front of the library. So maybe the select board, for an immediate safety issue, could remove or ask for those things to be removed. Just a suggestion, just a thought. Just that.
Well, but, so these have been placed there to keep people from, this is how I understand this. These obstructions, so to speak, or logs, have been placed there to keep people from parking on the grass, and I understand that. If they're not fastened down, am I just way out of line here saying they become a projectile if they're hit by a car? Okay, that's a safety issue in itself. So,
But if they're on property that we don't own, or we may own the property, that we may have leased to somebody else to do with it as
Yeah.
they see fit,
understood.
then
Understood.
I suspect that if we had if we knew the requirements of the boat club and we had a conversation with the folks that have placed the logs,
Yeah.
that the logs could be reshuffled a little bit to accommodate all.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Yeah. just
I know you hate when we do that. Sorry, David.
It's hard to take minutes when those motions get made like that.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion to direct the town administrator administrator to work with the leaseholders of the property, utilizing the obstructionist logs to have a conversation with the boat club to come to a reasonable compromise regarding safe transit of that property.
Second that motion.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And David, would you make a note, so on a future, not only for this particular stretch, but I think it bears, as was brought up earlier, for the board to have a larger conversation regarding the implications and long-term planning of sidewalk in the town.
Sure.
Thank you. Anything else, gentlemen? Okay, thank you very much. Let's move along to the request for the holding tank approval.
You want me to talk again?
Yeah, yes, please.
The plumbing inspector received an application for a holding tank for a property that current residential property that can't have a subsurface wastewater disposal system installed within the code, and therefore has recommended that if they want to continue, that they need to have a holding tank. And they filled out all the paperwork, needs approval of the municipal officers before final sign off, before it goes to the state to be approved.
Any questions regarding this application?
I do. So, looking at where that's going to go,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be right where snow is plowed off the road.
I'm presuming it's going to be buried.
I think it says buried, doesn't it?
They have to.
In the application.
Buried under snow, though.
And-
but
Yeah,
it'll be-
double buried.
It can't,
Oh,
can't
I
go
see, I
too far below the ground there. And obviously, if this didn't pass some sort of regulations and rules and regulations by someone, we wouldn't be asked to review this. Am I correct?
You'd still get a chance to review it and say yes or no, but yes, you're correct.
I mean, on the schematics, they're calling for the ejector pump to be underneath the underneath the structure. So
Yeah.
theoretically, there's a plan to have it be accessible.
Yeah, but the tank for pumping out, I think is what Karen may be alluding to.
Is there a plan as to how often I know someone's gonna say when it's full, but is there a plan as to when this gets pumped? And
Yeah, a holding tank's
monitoring?
required to have basically a float in it that tells you when it's full or approaching full.
Yeah.
And then you have to call and get it pumped out. So it benefits the property owner not to use more water or generate more wastewater than absolutely essential.
Okay.
And they're also under, it appears that they're under contract with Heidi Seekins, who is Moore's Septic, to pump the thing out when it needs to be pumped.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, I don't.
Oh my God.
It's a tough spot.
It's a tough spot.
Is that a year-round house?
Yeah.
Yep, well, it's been occupied for a long time as year-round residence, yes.
This is an improvement over
52.
others.
If you go for
Yes.
Brown Tail Moss,
There's shore and
section
then sort of
opens
cliff.
up, where it opens up, you can see the whole lake right there.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But, I have faith in our code enforcement officer to diligently
Yeah.
assess
Yeah.
things like this,
As
and
so-
we trust him to.
Yes,
so.
as Selectman Burrows just so aptly said, it's better than the situation that exists there today.
Correct.
100% agree on that.
Correct. Okay, all that being said, is there a motion that will be made?
Go ahead.
I move that the board sign the application agreement for holding tank installation as submitted by Judith Gilbert for the property located at 30 Camden Road.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? Thank you very much. I have asked for a conversation regarding reviewing department head and committee chair reporting schedules, as we have tabled appointments, and I feel like we have been remiss in our duties in not checking in with some of our other department heads. So I was hoping that we could have a brief conversation regarding folding in some of these department heads that are not included, and to offer the opportunity, if we want to make any sort of changes or additions to it elsewhere. Specifically, the electrical inspector, we've never met with the electrical inspector in my time on the board, and I think it would be worthwhile having a check-in.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a number of them there that I really feel that we should be having a conversation with, for none other than, hey, it's nice to meet you, type of thing.
Yeah.
I know we get regular updates from the EMS Performance Review Committee. I'm good with our communication there. The Emergency Management Director, I would,
We gotta hire one.
we gotta hire one, and then it would be nice to, then meet with the fire chief. We've met regularly, so I'm good there. Cemetery trustees, I feel there's a possibility we need to have a workshop with them.
Yep.
Personally, I would like to meet with the road commissioner. The rec commission, I feel we need to meet with them.
Well, they're scheduled to meet with us in the spring and then in the fall before budget season, which we have.
Right, these are their schedules.
This is the existing schedule. Yes. I would throw in there our dam committee, or McGonagall Dam Committee representatives. We've never met with them. And David, tell me if this is off topic, but or maybe a topic for another day, but formally requesting periodic activity updates of our department heads, also making that a formalized sort of thing. I mean, some of these folks are really fantastic in their inclusion of their meeting minutes or an activities log or that kind of thing, which I feel like is a really great tool for the board to just sort of stay up on what's going on in the town. And then of course there are some others here on that list that we either never hear from or occasionally hear from.
I mean, even quarterly.
Yeah.
Nice to hear from them.
Yeah, so is that something that we need to create a policy for?
Well, all the committees are supposed to, by your committee board, whatever rules, guidelines, submit meeting minutes as they get them done, or
Right.
as they meet. There is an ebb and a flow to that in terms of some committees are better than others, some committee members are better than others, and when those people drop off, sometimes those things start to
Sure,
slack or
I'm thinking
slip.
more for department heads.
Department heads, certainly you could obtain any level of reporting that you desired.
But is that something that we would need to create a policy on a board level requiring department heads to submit quarterly activity logs?
I guess it's going to depend on who the department head is and what description they might have currently, because I'm trying to think of some of the job descriptions you
Right, I thought some of the
recently
job
got
descriptions you
said
had.
periodic or whatever, and without the period being defined, and others fire chief has one in there, and
Well, can we?
I'm sure if we said, or if you said, we'd like to get a quarterly report from you or from everyone, we'd let everyone know that we want a quarterly report, and then this is the quarterly schedule. Probably would help them when it came time to do their annual report, because then they could just grab those 4 quarterly reports and summarize them into one and put it in the town report.
Well, why don't I go ahead and make a motion to direct the town administrator to communicate to both our department heads and our committee chairs that the board will be expecting quarterly activity reports, however substantial or insubstantial they may be.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Yes.
Is it okay for those that have been doing monthly, like the ACO, to continue
Yes.
to give it to you monthly?
Absolutely.
I'm just thinking
Yeah, absolutely.
for some people, once they get it into a routine,
Mhm.
plus I'm gonna pick on the ACO for the moment.
Sure.
As you know, we get a monthly ACO report. She also uses that for if she's got any reimbursement requests.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't ever want to dissuade
No.
someone from being communicative, but as a bare minimum.
So no,
Yeah, this is more
no
than
less
one.
than, how's that?
Yeah, no less
I
than.
got
So
it.
amended, yeah. Rosie, yes?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought when I was a selectman, we went through this and we set up a policy where therefore in the job descriptions of each group or who it was, that there would be a report would be handed in, or there would be some sort of accountability.
The frequency, for those it is called out specifically to require a report, there was not a frequency specified within,
Thank you.
but thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? Thank you very much. So are there any changes other than bringing in the other individuals that we just spoke about in this schedule that you all would like to see changed or different?
No, I think this looks good. We'll just make those additions and keep everyone that's on here currently.
Okay, fantastic. Anything else on that particular?
I would just like to note for the board that this was the preliminary, whatever we put together a couple of years ago, and there are times where people say, I'm going to Portugal, or I'm going someplace else.
Sure,
And we
reschedule
We
it,
just
yeah.
shuffle them around.
Yes.
But keep it as close as we can.
Bottom line is communication is a beautiful thing.
Yep.
And so hot on the heels of that conversation, we have the opportunity to appoint municipal officials, being department heads, correct?
And employees, yes.
And employees. So I am going to go ahead and say that there are certainly individuals on this list that I am not going to be willing to make an appointment for until we can schedule a meeting as the board to have a review with the individuals. I would like the opportunity to check in with our electrical inspector. I would like the opportunity to check in with all of our harbor masters. And that's specifically, those are the only individuals that I would like to have a conversation with prior to their appointments.
Okay. I'm good with that.
So that being said, with the exception of those individuals, can I have a motion to appoint? Any others, should the board wish?
There was one other person that you mentioned, I didn't even, excuse my ignorance, my rookiedom, but I wasn't even aware. It was right after, I think, did you, Karen, mention there was another department that I didn't even.
Cemetery trustees.
No, we talked about cemetery trustees, but it was electrical inspector and
Inland Harbor Master and our Maritime Harbor Masters.
There
Right.
is,
But
Emergency management.
We don't
no,
have.
we talked.
don't.
No, you were going through. Well,
well,
if I
wait,
think of
wait
it, I'll-
just a minute, I've got it right here.
Well, we've checked in with Heidi Blood several times. We've checked in with our fire chief several times. We check in with our town attorney regularly. We just had a check-in with our assessor's agent. We just reappointed our auditing company. I mean, I feel like I have a firm grip on performance level and expectations for the other individuals on this list.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Me too.
Right. If I thought it was like somebody that wasn't even on here initially, and I can't.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what I'm
I
trying
don't
to
think
remember
s-
what the hell it was. Sorry. But
I would like to have a conversation with Bernard, also our road commissioner. And I don't know if the board will agree.
Yep.
Yeah, you
Just
that's
check
fine.
in.
yeah. Just so you know, if you're looking on that list for the road commissioner,
He's
he's
not
not
on
on
here,
there.
but
Because
that's-
the town charter requires that he be appointed for 3 years, so he's midterm somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that was the other individual
Yep.
that was sticking out in my mind, just to touch base with. And I don't mean to imply that it's like a nasty, I just feel like the board should take the opportunity to have a conversation with some of our employees. So does the board wish to appoint other officials on this list? Or do we want to table it until,
Should we move that the board appoint individuals listed to positions in the terms shown on the sheet entitled Town Official Appointment Papers and dated July 8th, 2019,
with the exception?
with the exceptions of
The individuals
the
noted.
individuals that you just mentioned.
So before we move on that, the cemetery trustees.
Different, that's
That's
next,
different,
that's the next
okay.
agenda item.
Okay,
Yep,
all right, I'm ahead, sorry.
Second.
okay, moved
Okay.
and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And moving rapidly along to board, committee, and commission appointments. And since he has been sitting here so patiently and to not keep his time any longer, we have Mr. Kelly present, who has submitted a community interest form to be on the harbor committee. Thank you for being so patient.
Oh, thank you for
Does-
allowing me to be here. I'm Dave Kelly at 414 Youngtown Road.
Does anyone have any questions for Dave Kelly?
Why are you interested in joining the Harbor Committee?
You know, I'm a new resident of Lincolnville, currently building a house. If you drive down Youngtown Road, you'll see my skyscraper over there. It will be more aesthetically pleasing shortly. But I think that everyone should, in some way, shape, or form, contribute to the community they live in. Being new, basically, I just could like to jump in any capacity that I can. And that's kind of honestly my grounding reason. I'm married into the desire to be on the ocean. My bride is a merchant marine. I'm from New Mexico, so this is definitely foreign territory for me. But the use of the harbor, I'm pretty averse in. We've been doing that for many, many years. We're sailors, powerboat, sailboat, and we've lived in Rockland. We our boats in Camden, so we've gone through a lot of harbors, and you see what works and see what doesn't. You have to honor the history of what the harbor has done, and you also have to think progressively what could happen, especially for the aesthetics and the financial contributions for the community, which is basically endless. So it's a long-winded answer, but that's kind of it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good answer,
Great.
thank you.
Does anyone wish to make a motion?
I move to appoint David Kelly as a regular member to the Harbor Committee with a term expiring June 2021.
So moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? And I'm going to abstain because I'm friends with him.
Thank
And
you.
Thank you.
thanks for your service. And to continue the conversation with committee appointments, and to lead the conversation, I see absolutely no reason to not reappoint all of these individuals, with the exception and with absolutely no personal prejudice towards the individual on the McGonagall Dam Committee, but given that I feel we as a board have a larger conversation to have with regards to the Dam Committee, that we postpone until meeting with the individual for reappointment on the Dam Committee, that we hold his appointment until such time that we have a board level discussion or a conversation with this individual, and then a follow-up board conversation regarding the Dam Committee.
Second. No, that's not a motion, right?
Can't do that.
Sorry.
I know.
Sorry.
I know, I got away with it once. I'm not gonna push.
It was just so well worded.
I'm not gonna push the envelope.
No, I know.
Oh my goodness, I wrote that one down.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
So, moved and seconded.
Would you like me to repeat that for the
Yes,
benefit of the
clarification
board?
purposes, please, for the
Label.
record, so poor Melissa isn't like, what is going on?
Chair Dunn, motion to reappoint all of those on the board, committee, and commission interest and reappointment list dated July 19th, 2019, except those that didn't express an interest in being reappointed, and also with the exception of any McGonagall Dam Committee members until such time as the board had a chance to meet with that person.
Second. Nice. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? And I'm going to abstain for the only reason that I'm one of the people on the list.
Aha.
Okay, anything further on that particular topic? Okay, moving right along to a conversation regarding, starting a conversation regarding a facilities use policy and application. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
David, do you want to chat?
Sure. Growing out of the conversation regarding the use of the beach parking lot and how the board thought it might want to have a policy so that it was easier or more difficult or whatever for somebody to express what their interest was in using it and how to use it. He asked if I try to put together something for guidance. I did include in your packet the deed that came with the beach parking lot, the various opinions we've had through the years from the two different town attorneys that have been here during my time. One of them was written prior to my arrival. And then a whole bunch of sample applications and policies and whatever else I could gather from some other communities. And then when you get to the end of that packet, came up with a very preliminary early draft of a policy. I'm trying to find it myself. Public facilities use policy, and the reason I titled it that instead of beach parking lot policy is I didn't know if there might at some point be some other properties that you'd want to add to that list or expand upon in the future. There's an application, and if they met all the criteria, there would be an agreement signed between the town and the person seeking to utilize that. One of the things I did against my better judgment was including myself in here to be the first sayer of whether it was a good idea or a bad. It's certainly, if you wanted to be involved in the approval or denial of all, we could strike town administrator throughout, and it wouldn't hurt my feelings any, but oftentimes people seem to show up, you know, tomorrow and want to use it on August 6th. I'm just making this up. And what? I can't get approval? So.
Yeah.
So, for Breezemere Park, let's say someone wants to have a wedding there. What is the current policy?
We have a policy regarding the use of the bandstand itself, where, yeah, gazebo, bandstand, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, that's not the one in here. That's for Belfast, though, right?
That's for Belfast.
Oh, okay.
Right. Where if they come in, they can pay a deposit and pay a fee and get exclusive use of the bandstand for a period of time. That's subject to if the policy has if the Lincolnville band wants to use it, they get first dibs, and if there's a town function. And if they don't make a mess of the place, they get their deposit back and they pay I believe it's $100. Melissa's shaking her head. It's $100 rental for the use of that.
Okay.
But the remainder of the park, and they don't have to. If you wanted to go down and get married and you were willing to let anybody and everybody come up on the bandstand to witness it or have a lunch while you're getting married, that's fine. We don't, but if you want exclusive use and us to back you up, that's it. Or if you wanted to roll that into here and throw that other one away, we can get you a copy of that and see how we can incorporate that into this as well.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think that part of it is taking stock of all town-held properties that any individual may want to consider using. And I know that this is like a whole other can of worms, but the LIA comes to mind, the Veterans Park comes to mind. And I think that we would be remiss if we didn't have provisions for all of the town facilities. And I know that doesn't simplify it at all, but I just, I feel like if we don't start having the conversation now, the more that, we say, make policy regarding the beach parking lot, then someone's going to say, oh, well, the town's letting people do thus and so on town property. Does that also mean da-da-da-da-da? And I don't want to have to reinvent the wheel 12 times over.
Even if it's a conversation that says we're intentionally not including that because...
Well, or that could be the decision also. Is
right.
Like,
we're not going to...
This specifically excludes this, and this property in the application. So don't even try. Or something to that effect.
So I'll ask the same question. So for the LAA building, what's the process for renting that?
You call the president of the Lincolnville Improvement Association and ask them if you can rent it from them because we don't rent it.
Okay.
Because we've leased the whole thing to the Lincolnville Improvement Association.
Okay.
And we lease all the rights to it too. Which
Yeah.
is control of.
The inside of the building. I suppose we could lease the parking lot, but they'd probably be kind of perturbed.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just curious if you guys have any thoughts.
But in terms of the town of Lincolnville public facilities use policy draft, if this were something we were gonna adopt for any of the publicly owned facilities, but
Unless specifically excluded.
unless specifically excluded because of
A
Whatever
lease, a
reason.
lease
For what-
agreement, like the library also is, the town owns it.
oh right
But
but
it's
it's
under-
currently leased.
It's
yeah.
under the library's management.
But
But-
we don't own the building yet.
Right, but what
we
it-
own the property.
But what about in the case of where like they're like with Breezemere and the parking lot down at the waterfront? They're both neither are leased out to other third parties, but there may be covenants on one that restricts.
Well, there's the only really public use policy that we have is regarding the use of the bandstand. So the question is, do we want to roll Breezemere Park into the same
Oh, I see. Right, it's just the
So comes back, we can list out the other municipal properties, because I started down the road of trying to do it just for the beach, and then I tried to expand it, and then now we're expanding
Now we're
it
back,
further. But we can list out where we have other places, what, and give you copies of what restrictions previous boards have set on those places, or what restrictions you folks have, so we can have a more encompassing list.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
How does the board feel about the time frame in which the application can be submitted? 3 weeks seems like a good time frame. Okay. How do we feel about having the town administrator be sort of the first yay or nay?
I don't have any opposition to that. I feel like
I don't either. I mean, I feel like I trust David's judgment, and I also feel like he has been great in terms of like, I'm not really sure about this one. I'm going to bring it to the board.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
So sorry, David, but I think that
Goes with the territory.
you signed up for the job.
is there anything else contained within here that is disturbing or
Unsettling.
lacking?
So under section 5D, the applicant should not engage in or allow any illegal activity. That's fine. But then illegal drugs, alcoholic beverages shall not be brought onto or consumed within the public facility. So let's say they were having some event. They were all of age and they wanted to drink beer. I would want them to be able to, I think. Depending on
I
what
think
the
there's
event is.
a prohibition in statute about drinking in public, and when
All
this
right.
was geared towards the beach,
Okay.
Beach parking lot being a public space. I mean, if you were inside the LIA building
Mm-hmm.
and you were having a whatever
Like a wedding
reception,
Yeah.
and you're enclosed, it's no longer a public space when it's leased
Got it. Okay.
and enclosed, but
Yeah.
I think the outside is a different can of worms.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's also just legal aspects regarding the state licensing
Mm-hmm.
a use like that. I mean, that's why they require the lobster pound to put up sort of additional barriers to make it really clear where consumption can happen versus public. And the hard part, it's just a whole other management piece. Unless you were going to have a tent specifically that, I mean, I guess that's a question. Like
I've just made a big note for alcohol consumption to do a little more legwork on the back end of that.
yeah, I mean, because I could think of circumstances if it was in a tent and had someone age verifying at the door,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but again, Bablo would probably be able to clarify that for us. And then what about fees? Do we want to have that conversation now, or do we want to punt that to a future conversation?
That probably ought to be near the end when you determine which spaces might be available, because you might have a different rental charge for each one, or it might be free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you want to talk about it, but
No, I mean, I feel like, am I just missing it? I feel like I've looked at this thing so many times, but I'm just thinking about like waste disposal, solid waste disposal plan.
well, then I think that's in the maybe it's from what I need to consider.
I mean, including some provision that they need to like recycle, or just that they'll take their waste with them.
Well, just a plan, like required I don't know, a commitment for porta potties being part of like the attachment to the approved application, or, you know, something therein, you know, anything regarding
Like-
both human or solid waste.
Yeah, maybe we ought to expand upon the application, because it's certainly in the standards for issuance when it
Yeah,
talks about adequate sanitary
Yeah.
facilities.
Right,
Yeah.
but it's
But it
not in
doesn't
the,
say, tell me how you're gonna do that.
right, I mean,
Like there could be something saying you have to follow this. It has to meet the requirement of the, you know, this standardized chart that says, you know, depending on the number of people attending, you have to have the suitable number of
well, and that
toilets or something like that.
you know, the applicant shall attach, you know, confirmation of this, and this.
Oh,
And you
right,
do
yeah.
bring up a good point, and I know that this is going to make things even slightly more complicated, but yeah, I don't know if recycling is part of it, you know, the other element of trash.
Currently, we have let's just say Brisbane Park, we have a trash container.
We don't separate out
We don't
recycling.
recycle, we're not, you know, so
Yeah.
we want to make sure that happens. We need to start doing it.
I know, and who's gonna police it and all of that.
No,
but,
I know.
but I think that some sort of confirmation and commitment to dealing with it
Yeah, for
would be
sure.
required, and that there would be, I don't know, money on the line if the site is not adequately, you know, to our satisfaction, cleaned up and cared for afterwards. It's not as though we have a public works department, and I don't want everyone sitting here in this room right now to have to go down with trash pickup the next day after someone has a party, if they're not, say, as responsible as Donnie is, you know?
Yeah,
And having a deposit, and then
that's what. Yeah, I was thinking deposit.
having vendors we could call in case to go and clean it up
Yeah.
would be a good thing to line up.
Okay. So, till next time, is there anything?
Till a future meeting, yep.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Fantastic. And Karen, I'm gonna hand this one over to you because apparently my mom's buying a piece of property.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, authorization for town administrator to sign closing documents for 7 Morton Road property. David?
Yeah, so at the, was it the, I think it was at the last meeting, maybe it was a couple meetings ago.
Do you know someone?
No, it wasn't the last meeting, it was 2 meetings ago. We
Oh,
had a brief executive session regarding the 7 Morton Road property, which the board voted at the time to authorize me to sign the purchase and sale agreement. And now we're in hopes to have a closing tomorrow, but I need to have authority to sign the deed and the closing statement and whatever else might pop up, but there won't be anything else. But
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Do I have a motion on that?
I move that the board authorize the town administrator to sign on behalf of the town the closing statement and quitclaim deed without covenant/release, and any other documents necessary to sell the town-owned property at 7 Morton Road to Elizabeth Dunn for the price of $35,000.
I'll second it.
Motion's been seconded. Any more discussion on that?
I'm glad we're finally.
Is there anybody in the
Yeah.
audience that would like to speak? Nothing? Okay. All those in favor? Motion unanimously passed. I'd like to hand this meeting back over to the chair.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. And now we have the treasurer's and payroll warrants to approve and sign. very much. And is there any more business that the board wishes to discuss at this time? Seeing none, can we have a final motion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you very much.
Beyond the warrants that you have there, I'm going to pass the holding tank form down. There's only, for some reason, the spot for 3 people to sign for selectmen. Probably predates 5-member boards.
I'm actually keeping this document.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah.
I know, it's kind of handy, isn't it?